My name is Marlena Kaczynski, and I am 41 years old, and there is a yellow legal pad on my kitchen table at 6:14 in the morning with the word inventory written across the top in blue ballpoint pen. There is half a cup of cold coffee next to it. There is a business card on the counter that says, John Hartwell, CPA, WHA Holdings, Wilmington, Delaware. And I have looked at it 3 times in the last 2 weeks and put it back exactly where my husband left it. There is no wedding ring on my finger this morning, only the shallow groove where it used to live, and I have not taken it off in 14 years. The reason it is sitting in a small ceramic dish on the windowsill is something I want to tell you, but I am going to tell you slowly, the way it actually happened. Because if I rush it, you will not understand how a woman like me, a woman who clipped coupons for 14 years and worked 18 hours a day for 7 of them, ends up sitting in a marble lobby downtown, sliding a single piece of paper across a conference table to a man named Kent Briggs and watching him blink twice. I am going to start at the beginning, and the beginning is not the divorce. The beginning is a wedding in Perrysburg in 2010, where I met a 23-year-old undergraduate named Trevor Whitmore Hayes, who told me on a back porch under a string of paper lanterns that he was going to be the kind of lawyer his uncle was, and I, 26 and tired in a way I did not yet have a name for, believed him. Before I tell you the rest of it, I want to do one thing. If you are watching this anywhere, if you are folding laundry or driving home from a job you have stayed at 3 years too long, or sitting in your car in a parking lot for a few extra minutes because the house is loud, drop a like on this video so it finds the women who need it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And put in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is for you. I read every one of those. It matters more than you know. Now let me take you back to the beginning. I grew up in East Toledo in a brick house with a furnace my father fixed twice a winter and a coffee can on top of the refrigerator that had a folded $20 bill go into it every Friday for 43 years. My father was a union pipe fitter at Local 50, and my mother ran the cafeteria at a hospital, and there were 2 rules in that house. The first rule was that dinner was at 5:30, whether or not you wanted to come to the table. The second rule, which my father told me in his pickup truck the winter I turned 12, the day after he had quietly fixed a neighbor's furnace for free, was, you don't tell people what you did for them. That's what makes it count. I built my entire marriage around that sentence, and I want you to understand that, because everything that comes next sits on top of it. Trevor's family was different from mine. His mother was an adjunct at Bowling Green State, who had been working on a book about communications theory for 2 decades that nobody in the department asked about anymore, and his father was an insurance adjuster in Maumee who left when Trevor was 9. Trevor told me once, on a back porch the summer we were dating, that when he was 17, he watched a partner at his uncle's law firm walk into a country club dining room, and 3 men stood up at the same time. He said, I want to be the man who makes other men stand up. And I thought it was charming, the way ambition is charming when it has not yet eaten anyone. We got married in a small Catholic church in East Toledo in 2011. My brother Pavel was not at the wedding because Trevor was not Polish enough for him, and I tried not to take it personally and mostly succeeded. Trevor wanted to go to law school. He had a 161 LSAT and big eyes about Northwestern, and we did the math on a yellow legal pad, and the math did not work, and he was very gentle that night, the way men can be gentle when they are about to ask for something enormous, and he said, Lena, what if we went all in on it? What if you were the one who made it possible? I'd never forget it. I want you to hear that sentence the way I heard it, because it is the sentence that built the next 7 years of my life. I'd never forget it. I said yes. I said yes the way my father would have said yes if a neighbor had asked for a furnace fix in February. I went down to Owens Community College and finished my medical billing certificate at night, and I got hired at an OB/GYN group in Sylvania at 28. And then a year later, I picked up a second job as a remote claims analyst for a workers' comp firm in Cleveland, and between the two of them, I was working roughly 18 hours a day. I drove a 2011 Chevy Cruze with 200,000 miles on it. I packed Trevor's lunches. I wrote his tuition checks from a checking account I called the Trevor account in my own head. And I sold my grandmother Stasha's garnet ring in 2L year for $1,400 to buy him 3 suits for the summer associate program at a firm in Columbus. And I never told him I sold the ring. I never told anyone. That's what makes it count, my father had said. And I let that sentence be the floor of my marriage, even when the floor was eating me. I want to give you a number because I think numbers are honest in a way feelings are not. From 2012 to 2019, of the roughly $94,000 a year I made between 2 jobs, I funneled about $52,000 a year into Trevor. Tuition, books, bar prep at $5,400, networking dinners at the firm where I was not invited, 4 pairs of dress shoes from a place on Adams Street, the lease on a 2024 Audi A4 he called a firm car. I paid the mortgage on a 1962 brick ranch in Sylvania alone. The coffee can on top of the fridge held $4,800 some weeks and $11 others. He passed the bar in February of 2023. We had not been on a vacation in 9 years. I had not bought myself a pair of shoes that wasn't a Clark's slip-on since 2017. The first time I knew, deep in the place where you know things before you let yourself know them, was a Sunday phone call with my mother in late February. She called every Sunday at 4. She said, "Marlena, honey, when was the last time you heard your own voice in your house?" I said I was tired, and she said, "That's not what I asked." I sat on the kitchen floor for a long time after that call, with my back against the dishwasher. There was a stack of Bar Association mailers on the counter, and the John Hartwell card was sticking out from under them at a 45-degree angle, and I thought, for the first time, who is John Hartwell? I asked Trevor about it that night, and he said, "Oh, that's a vendor. Firm uses him." He said it without looking up from his phone. I put the card back where it was, and I added the words, John Hartwell, in the margin of my legal pad in pencil and underlined them once. The Tuesday after that, on a lunch break, I drove a clean charcoal suit Trevor had texted me to bring down to the lobby of his firm, Briggs Caldwell Hartwell, on the 18th floor of a building on Madison Avenue with a marble lobby that smelled like a hotel. I was standing at the elevator bank waiting for him to come down for the bag, and a woman in a burgundy wrap dress walked past me and looked at me for 1 full second. She had a black braid down her spine and a green lanyard around her neck, and her eyes were very still. She had asked me 2 Decembers ago at the firm holiday party whether I was holding up all right. Her name was Inez Pacheco. She did not smile. She just looked. And there was something in the look that made me stand a little straighter. The way you stand straighter when someone passes you a piece of information you have not yet read. I did not know I was being passed anything. I did not know that yet. That night, after Trevor was in the shower and his phone was on the nightstand, I did something I had not done in 14 years of marriage. I opened his email on the home laptop. He had used the same password since 2011, the year we got married, my birthday backwards, and I knew that I had typed it into Amazon 100 times for him over the years. I want to tell you something I would never admit out loud anywhere except here. I felt good. I felt good in a way I had not felt good in 7 years. I did not read a single message. I only looked at the folders, and there was one folder labeled simply, WA. And I closed the laptop without opening it, and I went to bed, and I lay on my back in the dark next to my husband, and I listened to him breathe, and I knew. I had not known for sure until I looked, but I had known. For the next 10 days, I became a woman who was paying attention, which is a kind of work I had not done inside my own house since I was 26. I did not say anything different. I did not act any different. I cooked the same dinners on the same nights, chicken thighs on Mondays, my mother's stuffed cabbage on Wednesdays, takeout from the Euro place on Reynolds Road on Fridays, and Trevor sat across the table from me and talked about a senior partner named Kent Briggs and a continuing education seminar he had to attend in Cleveland the second weekend of March. And I said, "Of course, honey, that sounds important." And I watched the small recalibrations happen behind his eyes when I asked easy questions in the wrong order. I asked him at one point, on a Wednesday over stuffed cabbage, whether the firm had ever used a taxman named John Hartwell, and he said, without looking up, "Hartwell? Doesn't ring a bell. Why?" And I said, "No reason, his card was in your coat." And he said, "Probably from a CLE," and reached for the salt. The smallest, smoothest lie. The kind of lie that arrives so easily it tells you it is not the first one. I did not say anything else. I went to bed that night and added in the margin of my legal pad, in pencil, in very small letters, "He knows John Hartwell." I want to tell you what silence felt like in that house, because I think silence is the part of stories like this that nobody describes correctly. Silence in a marriage that is about to end is not peaceful. Silence is full. Silence is loud. It has weight, like a wet wool coat on the back of a chair. I would walk into the living room and the dog, we don't have a dog, we have an old gray cat named Vince who came with the house. Vince would look up at me with the precise expression of an animal who is wondering why the temperature has dropped 2 degrees indoors. The Saturday morning of that second weekend in March, Trevor was in Cleveland at his seminar, allegedly, and I was at the kitchen table with the second cup of coffee, and a man in a Patagonia vest knocked on my front door and handed me a thick manila envelope with a courier slip on the outside, and I signed for it without reading what it was, the way you do when you are tired. I sat down at the kitchen table and I opened it. Whitmore Hayes versus Whitmore Hayes. I read the petition twice. The marital home was listed as his separate property, financed, it said, primarily through husband's professional earnings. The house I had paid for alone for 14 years. There were no joint accounts listed. The marriage was valued on paper at almost nothing. I sat on the couch for 43 minutes. I know it was 43 minutes because I was watching the clock on the cable box, the way a person watches a clock when she does not want to be in her own body. And then I did what my father taught me. I got a fresh, yellow legal pad, and I uncapped a blue ballpoint pen, and I wrote "inventory" across the top. And I started, line by line, going back to 2011. Mortgage payments by month, tuition by semester, the summer associate suits, the 2024 Audi lease, the grandmother Stasia ring, the Christmas Day shift in 2017 so he could rest before the bar. By the time I was done, it was past midnight, and the legal pad was 9 pages long, and the coffee can on top of the fridge had $11 in it. The Monday after that, I took my lunch break at noon, and I drove down to Madison Avenue, and I walked into the lobby of Briggs Caldwell Hartwell with a folder under my arm, and I asked the security desk for Inez Pacheco, by name. The security guard, a black man in his 60s named Mr. Rubin, who recognized me from holiday parties, picked up the phone and said, "Inez, the lady's wife is here," and looked at me kindly, and I knew, in the way you know things from a stranger's tone, that more people had been watching this than I understood. Inez came down in 3 minutes. She was wearing the burgundy wrap dress and the green lanyard, and she did not look surprised. She walked me to a small windowless conference room on the lobby level, and she closed the door and she said, very quietly, in a voice that had been waiting a long time to say it, "I have been hoping you would come." She slid one piece of paper across the table. The registered name of WA Holdings LLC. The date of formation, October 2018. The registered agent, Beverly Whitmore, Trevor's mother, listed under her maiden name. And one sentence, handwritten at the bottom, "I have kept a calendar." Inez had been keeping a calendar for 14 months. Every weekend, Trevor told me he was at a seminar that he was actually at a townhouse on West Bancroft. Every billable hour he billed to a client called Hartwell Pers, that was, in the firm's actual records, a ghost. Every wire transfer of rental income from 3 properties on the Sylvania edge of Toledo into the Capital One 360 account ending in 4471. Inez had been waiting for me. She had been waiting because of her own mother, she told me later, and because of a parish friend who had once shown her own mother how to open her own account. Some women are paying attention to other women in ways the men in the room never see. I want to pause here because I know how this sounds. It sounds tidy. It sounds like television. It was not tidy. I sat in that conference room with that piece of paper on the table, and my hands started shaking the way they used to shake in the office when an insurance denial came through for someone's chemo, and I had to put both palms flat on the table for a full minute before I could pick up the paper, and I want you to know that, because I think there is something dishonest about stories like mine that pretend the woman is calm the whole time. I was not calm. I was furious in a way that did not have language yet. I want to ask you something. I keep thinking about what it does to a woman when she figures out that the man whose name she packed into lunches for 7 years has been studying her like a deposition, has been keeping records of her loyalty so he can use them against her, the way you use leverage. If you have ever sat in that particular room, even once, even with a smaller version of it, put it in the comments. I read every single one. The smear started fast. Trevor's mother, Beverly, called my mother on a Wednesday afternoon and explained that Trevor has just been heartbroken. Marlena has been so withdrawn for so long, you know how she is. My mother, who is 67 years old and has buried a husband and worked the cafeteria at ProMedica Toledo for 31 years, listened politely and then said, "Beverly, I am going to hang up now." And she did. 2 of Trevor's cousins unfollowed me on Facebook within the same 48 hours. A neighbor on our street, a woman named Janine, who I had baked banana bread for twice, met me at the mailbox and put her hand on my arm and said, "I am praying for both of you." And I said, "Thank you." And I did not correct her, and I went inside the house and stood at the kitchen sink for a long time and let cold water run over my wrists and watched it disappear down the drain. I made an appointment with a family attorney named Dolores Ahn. She had graduated from Toledo Law in 1998. She wore a charcoal pantsuit with a soft white blouse, and her office had a cactus on the windowsill that someone had painted a small, smiling face on. And when I spread the legal pad and Inez's calendar and the bank statement Inez had photocopied for me across her desk, she looked at it for a long time. Then she looked at me. Her hands were folded. She said, very quietly, "Oh, sweetheart, yes." I want to tell you about the Tuesday morning, 2 weeks later, when I drove downtown to a deposition prep meeting and a senior partner named Kent Briggs came into Dolores Ahn's office uninvited, with a cup of coffee in his hand, and tried to make it go away over the conference table. I want to tell you what I did, because that is the moment something inside me that had been very tired for a long time woke up and did not go back to sleep. The meeting was supposed to be Dolores and me. Then there was a knock at the door, and Kent Briggs, who was 63, gray, in a navy 3-piece, walked in like he owned the floor. and he looked at me. A woman in a heather gray turtleneck and a navy cable cardigan, and he said, "Marlena, can we just talk like adults here? I think this thing has gotten out of hand." I did not answer. I waited for Dolores to speak, and she did not. She nodded at me, very slightly, and I understood it was my room. I reached into the legal pad folder, and I pulled out one piece of paper, and I slid it across the table. It was a printed bank statement from Capital One 360, account ending in 4471, in Trevor Whitmore Hayes' name only, dated 3 days earlier, current balance $63,400. Kent Briggs's eyes moved across it. He blinked. He blinked twice. I want to tell you what those 2 blinks did to me, because that is the moment something inside me changed register. For 7 years, I had been the woman who carried the can. I had been the one who knew where every receipt was buried. And in the marble silence of that conference room, watching a 63-year-old senior partner of a downtown firm process a piece of paper he had not expected to see, I felt, for the first time, what it is to hold a thing the other side does not yet know you have. He said, "I'll be in touch," very softly, and he stood up, and he carried his coffee out, and the meeting was over in 11 minutes. Dolores Ahn waited until the door clicked shut. Then she said, "Honey, we are about to do something good." The mediation was set for a Tuesday morning 2 weeks later, at the offices of a neutral mediator on Madison Avenue, 3 blocks from Briggs Caldwell Hartwell. The night before, my mother drove out to Sylvania in her Buick Encore and made stuffed cabbage in my kitchen the way her mother had made it in East Toledo. And she sat across the table from me and put both her hands on top of mine and said, "Marlena, your father always said the people who know how much you carried are the only ones whose opinion matters in the end." I wrote it on the legal pad. I did not cry. I was past the place where crying happens. I want to say something to you, right here, before I tell you what happened in that mediation, because I think this part is the heart of it. He knew. Dolores Ahn knew. Inez Pacheco knew. My mother knew. There were people in my life who had been seeing me clearly for a long time, and I had not been letting myself see them seeing me, because if I had, I would have had to admit how much I had been carrying. If you have ever had that moment, the moment where you suddenly notice the people who saw you all along, when you had been so used to being invisible you stopped knowing what visible felt like, drop a like on this video. It is small, but it means more than you know. I am dressing now in the morning of the mediation. I am wearing the heather gray cotton turtleneck, the navy cable cardigan with the sleeves pushed up to the elbow, the dark indigo straight-leg jeans, the brown leather Clark slip-ons, the small gold-plated stud earrings my mother gave me for my 16th birthday. I am not wearing the wedding band. It is in a small ceramic dish on the windowsill. I drive the 2011 Cruze downtown. I park in a garage on Jackson Street. I take the elevator to the 6th floor of the mediator's office, and Dolores is waiting in the lobby with a navy folder under her arm and a coffee for me and one for her. We do not speak much. We do not need to. The conference room is long and bright. Trevor and Kent Briggs are already at the far side of the table when we walk in. Trevor is wearing a charcoal suit supply 2-button and a white spread collar shirt with no tie and a watch I have never seen before, a Tag Heuer Carrera with a black strap. He is freshly shaved. He looks like an associate the senior partners point at on Fridays. He is not wearing a wedding ring. He stands when we come in. The mediator, a woman named Patricia Okafor in her 50s, opens with formalities. Trevor uses the phrase amicable resolution twice in the first 3 minutes. He invokes our years together with a softness in his voice that I realize, for the first time, is a courtroom softness. It is the softness he uses for jurors. He calls me Lena, the childhood nickname he has not used in 2 years, and the sound of it lands in my chest like a coin in a tin can. Dolores Ann waits. She lets him talk. When he is done, she opens the navy folder. She places one document on the table. Delaware Certificate of Formation. WHA Holdings, LLC, October 2018. Registered Agent, Beverly Marlene Whitmore, mother of Trevor Whitmore Hayes, listed under maiden name to obscure beneficial ownership. She places the second. Rental property records and 12 months of unreported rent receipts. 3 properties on the Sylvania-Toledo border. Total receipts $57,600, of which 0 is reflected on any joint tax filing. She places the third. Capital One 360 statements. Account ending 4471, in Trevor's name only. $63,400, routed in over 4 years, including transfers from the rental income. She places the fourth. Notarized affidavit of Inez Marisol Pacheco, senior estate paralegal at Briggs Caldwell Hartwell, dated, witnessed, sworn, itemizing 14 months of fraudulent billable hours under a fictitious client labeled Hartwell Pers, during which time Mr. Whitmore Hayes was, by his own personal calendar entries, off-site at a residence on West Bancroft. She places the fifth, last. The John Hartwell CPA business card from the kitchen counter, and clipped to it a sworn statement signed and dated from Mr. Hartwell himself, deposed by Dolores Ann's office 2 weeks earlier, confirming that he had advised the WHA principal on tax sheltering strategies since October of 2018. The Hartwell card had been sitting on my counter for 2 weeks while I was making my husband stuffed cabbage. The man whose name was on the card had assumed the wife knew. He had documents. Kent Briggs reads down the affidavit. He does not look at Trevor. He looks at the page. Trevor's eyes find Inez's name on the document, and I want you to know exactly what his face did. It was not a confession. He did not break. There was a very small movement in the muscle along his jaw, and his eyes paused on the word Pacheco, and I understood, watching it, that he had not known which paralegal had been keeping records. He had not known that anyone was. He had assumed his life was unobserved, the way men of a certain temperament always assume their lives are unobserved. The mediator, Patricia Okafor, looked across the table at Kent Briggs, and she said, very evenly, "Counsel, do you need a recess?" Trevor's performance deflated in one breath. The shoulders he had been holding back were no longer being held back. He looked at me with an expression I had not seen on his face since the night he asked me to put him through law school. It was the face of a boy. He said, "Lena, you don't want to do this." I want you to hear my voice the way it sounded when I answered him, because I want you to know I did not yell and I did not cry. I said, very softly, "Trevor, I already did it. I'm just here for the paperwork." Kent Briggs took the recess. They walked into the hallway and the door clicked shut. Dolores Ann exhaled and said, "Well then." I was looking at the John Hartwell card on the table. I was thinking about the morning 2 weeks ago when I had moved a stack of Bar Association mailers and seen it and not said anything. I was thinking about how long I had not been seeing what was in front of me. And then I was thinking about Inez, about a woman in a burgundy wrap dress who had passed me in a marble lobby once and looked at me for 1 full second and said nothing and started keeping a calendar. There are women in this world who are saving each other, and you do not even know it is happening until the day it is your turn to be saved. When the recess ended, Kent Briggs came back in alone. He sat down. He folded his hands. He said, "We'd like to discuss settlement parameters." I drove home that afternoon. I did not turn on the radio. I sat in the driveway of the brick ranch in Sylvania for 9 minutes with the engine running before I went inside. The gray cat, Vince, was on the back of the couch in the front window. He blinked at me very slowly. I sat down at the kitchen table and I picked up the legal pad. The yellow paper was soft at the edges from being handled. I wrote in blue ballpoint pen in the same handwriting I had used for 14 years. Tuesday, March, mediation. He looked at me. I underlined the last 3 words once. And then I closed the pad and put it on top of the refrigerator next to the coffee can, and I went into the bedroom and I lay down on top of the bedspread and I slept for 4 hours, which I had not done in the middle of an afternoon since I was a child. It took 10 weeks for the settlement to land in writing. I want to tell you what happened in those 10 weeks, because the part most people skip is the part where life keeps going while a marriage is dissolving on paper, and that part is the part that actually changes you. Trevor moved out the weekend after the mediation into a furnished 1-bedroom on Monroe Street in Toledo. The Audi lease ended up in his name only, which it had always been. He took the Tag Heuer and a hard-shell suitcase and the bar prep books I had paid for, and he left the family photographs and the ceramic dish his grandmother had given us and the gray cat. Vince did not seem to register the absence. The natural cascade, the things I did not have to cause, started small and got larger. Inez Marisol Pacheco's complaint to the firm's ethics committee, which she had filed 3 weeks before any of the rest of this, finally got heard. The firm separated from Trevor by mutual agreement on the second Friday of April. He did not lose his bar license. He did lose the country club membership his uncle had sponsored him for. He did lose, in the slow way these things move in a city the size of Toledo, several of the men who used to stand up when the partner walked into the country club dining room. The paralegal at the competing firm, a woman named Brittany, whose name I will not give you a last name for, because she is 28 and was in over her head, and I do not need to put a target on her, broke off the relationship the week the firm separated from him. He did not handle it well, by which I mean he showed up at her apartment building twice, and security did not let him in, and that became a story people told. The smear campaign reversed itself in the slow, grudging way that smear campaigns reverse themselves in small cities. Trevor's mother stopped calling my mother. 2 of his cousins refollowed me on Facebook in late April with no comment. Janine the neighbor brought over a casserole, which I accepted with thanks and ate alone over 3 days. The settlement, when it came, awarded me the marital home, equitable distribution of WHA holdings, which Dolores's office had unwound, reimbursement of $187,000 in commingled funds, and 3 years of spousal support. I want to tell you the truth about how I felt when I read the final version. It is not the truth I wish I had. I did not feel triumph. I did not feel closure, which is a word I do not actually believe in. I felt tired in a different way than I had been tired before. Tired the way you are tired after a long drive, when you have arrived somewhere and the engine is finally off. There were people who came back to me. There were people who did not. My brother Pavel, who had not spoken to me in 14 years because Trevor was not Polish enough for him, called me on a Tuesday in May at 6 a.m. before his shift at the corrections facility. He said, "Marlena, I should have called you when Dad got sick. I should have called you a long time before that." I want to tell you what I said. I said, "Pavel, I can hear you. I am not ready yet, but I can hear you." I did not promise him anything. I did not perform forgiveness. I did not chase him. He sent me a card 3 weeks later with a photograph of our father at 30 inside it, and I put the photograph on the windowsill next to the ceramic dish where the wedding band lives, and that is where it is now. Trevor's mother Beverly sent me an email in early June asking if she could come pick up some books that had been hers. I responded with a single sentence, "Yes, on a Saturday morning after 10. And she came on a Saturday morning at 10:30, and we did not speak about her son. We spoke about a magnolia tree she had planted in the backyard of the brick ranch in 2014. She said it had grown beautifully. She said she was sorry. I let her be sorry. I did not absolve her. I let her go home with the books. Inez Pacheco and I had coffee one Sunday in late April at a place called Plate One in West Toledo, and she ordered a cortado and I ordered a black drip, and we did not talk about Trevor at all. We talked about her mother and her parish friend and the way some women save each other without ever putting a name to it. I told her I had not had a friend who was younger than me in 12 years. She said, "That is something we can fix." I am still in touch with her. We have lunch on the first Tuesday of every month. I want to tell you about something I did the first week of June that I did not tell anyone about for a long time. I sat down at the kitchen table at 10 o'clock one night with the yellow legal pad and a fresh page, and I wrote a letter. Not to Trevor. The letter was not to him. It was to the version of myself who had said yes on the back porch in Perrysburg in 2010. The version of me who was 26 and tired in a way she did not yet have a name for. I wrote her a one-page letter, and I want to read you the last sentence of it because it is the closest thing to a philosophy I have. The last sentence said, "You are not what you carry for someone else. You are what is left of you when you put it down." I read it once out loud at the kitchen table, and I folded the letter into thirds, and I put it in the back of the yellow legal pad on top of the refrigerator. My mother called me that Sunday, the way she had called every Sunday at 4 o'clock for 15 years, and she said, "Marlena, there you are. There's your voice." I laughed. I laughed in a way that startled the room, the way a laugh you have not heard in a long time can startle a room. The cat looked up. My mother said, "Oh, my girl, welcome back. I want to tell you about the kitchen window now, because that is where I want to leave you." It is a Saturday morning in late June. The window above the sink is open onto the backyard. There is a bird feeder my father built in 1996, and a chickadee is on the side of it, sideways. The coffee is warm. I am wearing jeans and a soft sweatshirt. There is a community college course catalog on the table. Owens Community College, Associate of Applied Science in Health Information Management, online, fall term. I have circled it in blue ballpoint pen. The coffee can on top of the refrigerator has $480 in it. The yellow legal pad is underneath it. The wedding band is in the ceramic dish on the windowsill. The gray cat, Vince, is asleep on the back of the couch. There is a sentence I want to say to my father, who has been gone 2 years now, and I do not say it out loud. I say it inside, the way my mother taught me to talk to him. I say, "Dad." I put it down. My name is Marlena Kuczynski. I am 41 years old, and I know now what it feels like to be exactly where I am supposed to be. If this story stayed with you, the way it stayed with me when I lived through it, I want to ask you something before you go. Has someone ever quietly seen you, really seen you, at a moment when you thought you were invisible? Put it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you believe the people who see us clearly are worth keeping close, drop a like on this video, subscribe so the next story finds you, and share it with someone who needs to hear that she is not invisible. Stay with me. I'll see you in the next one.